Hello and welcome to Somerville Community Access Television and Greater Somerville's continuing coverage of the 2015 municipal elections. I'm Joe Lynch, producer and host of Greater Somerville, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to the 5 Alderman-at-Large candidates whose names will appear on the November 3rd, 2015 ballot. The 5 candidates for Somerville Alderman-at-Large are John Connolly, Sean Fitzgerald, Mary Jo Rossetti, Dennis Sullivan, and William White. We hope you find these candidate profiles helpful when you vote in this year's election. If you need more information about voting in this year's municipal election, please visit the City of Somerville's website or call the Elections Department at City Hall. As always, stay safe, stay informed, and thank you for watching. And I'm here with 2-time challenger for a seat on the Board of Aldermen for Alderman-at-Large, Sean Fitzgerald. Sean is a resident of Ward 7, and it is my pleasure to welcome him here to the Somerville Community Access Television Studios. Welcome down.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for being here.
You know, whenever I address somebody who lives in the western part of the city, I always say, welcome down. But with the amount of development that's going on in Union Square, I should say, welcome to Uptown.
I think that's the new apropos. Somerville, absolutely.
So, Sean, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
This will give the voters a little bit more exposure to who Sean Fitzgerald is. I know you've been knocking doors and doing your canvassing since the early spring. But tell the voters, you know, there may be some new folks in town. Tell the voters and tell the citizenry a little bit more about Sean Fitzgerald.
Sure. I'm a longtime community activist. I've lived in Somerville for over 10 years now, since 2004. I've grown up in a family of dedicated public servants. My first political experience was holding a sign for Hubert Humphrey's presidential campaign in 1968. And I've always believed in giving back to my community. That's how my wife and I raised our 2 children. They both have go to the Somerville public school system and have been so since the days at the pre-K at the Capuano School, of which I was the vice president of the PTA there, and later at the West Somerville Neighborhood School. I got involved in Somerville by volunteering for Dorothy Kelly Gay's campaign for lieutenant governor. Subsequently helped run her upset campaign for mayor in 1999, and then went to City Hall with her for several years, and then went on to become chief of staff to Senator Charles Shannon, the late Senator Charles Shannon, and now I am currently the chief of staff to Representative Jay Kaufman. He's the chair of the Revenue Committee up on the State House at Beacon Hill.
Terrific. And I know you're involved. I know personally that you are involved in Somerville Little League as well.
I've been involved in the Somerville Little League sports scene and basketball scene for the last 6 or 7 years, coaching both baseball and basketball for both my son and daughter.
Great.
And they play.
Do the voters have a website or any way to contact you if there's something that we haven't covered in our little profile here?
Yes, in fact, they do. My website address is Sean, S-E-A-N, the number 4, alderman.com. Very
good. Let's go right into one of the major issues facing a lot of folks here in the city, which is the affordability issue. Not only on the cost of living in the city of Somerville in 2015, but primarily on the cost of housing, whether you're a renter, a first-time buyer, or a long-time owner of property. The expense of being here in the city is skyrocketing. Your thoughts a little bit, Sean, about how, if you were successful in November, how you would propose moving through this mind-boggling issue of affordability?
Well, I think we have 2 major problems in our housing stock right now and the trend that we're going to. One is the size of the units being offered. They're really not family-size units. There's units that are 8 to 1,200 square feet, mostly millennials, and that's not a working family that can come in and be affordable in Somerville. I think the success of Somerville has the downside that it's less affordable. I also see just a nonstop proliferation of condo developments, and that's been ongoing for the last 5 to 7 years. You have the traditional 3-decker stock that had a family in Somerville being made into condos, 3 separate condos, all selling for $500,000 to $600,000 per condo, and I think that's going a long way to taking the fabric and the originalness of Somerville out and making it a community that is tough to afford.
So it's, you know, some of these other folks are being able to afford it, though. I hear it, the issue of affordability. And what some people have said to me, Sean, is that it's really coming down to almost like a class warfare. Is those who are more affluent, who have the younger folks who have better paying jobs, they can afford the $600,000, the $700,000 price tags. Whereas somebody who's blue collar or less than affluent, they can't even afford to save for a down payment. So let's address that issue in terms of the set aside for affordable housing. You have folks who are advocating taking it from its current 12.5 all the way up to 20%. Your thoughts on that in terms of the new zoning codes that are being written and the consideration for hiking the set aside for affordable housing?
Well, I think there's some problems with the new zoning code, but that's a whole other issue. I would strongly be in favor of 20%. I'd be in favor of 25%. I think that developers that are coming in, they can afford to give that percentage of affordable housing because they're making the money on the bulk of the housing that's not affordable. And I think we should really go a long way to stimulating commercial development and really stop trying to make Somerville more dense, because we're having a problem right now getting housing in that's affordable.
So you don't see that hiking of the set-aside scaring away the developers. The offset to that is really to stimulate more commercial development in the city.
I think there's no way that any developer will be scared away from Somerville. It's the hottest market right now going on. You have Assembly Square that's just taking off to what was envisioned 15 years ago. I think there's no way a developer will be scared away. The developers always play that game, that if you do that, we'll leave. We've seen that with tax breaks for companies that come in and say, we'll go to North Carolina or Georgia. It's a phantom argument, and I think it doesn't hold.
Let's stay with affordability in the city a little bit more. The parking fees and fines, the taxes, the water bills. What are you hearing from the voters in terms of those issues?
Outrage. I think it's way too high. I think it's way too onerous. I think we're a metropolis around Somerville, Boston, Cambridge, and Medford, and I think we have the worst parking restrictions going on. And that's when I'm out knocking doors, I hear a lot of that, and I get the argument that we need the revenue. But I think if we had more commercial development, we wouldn't have to be as onerous. And
unfortunately, the Board of Aldermen do not control the Traffic Commission, who are the ones that set the fees and fines. Would you be in favor of dismantling that commission and bringing it under the guidance of the board?
I wouldn't be in favor of dismantling it, but I certainly would be in favor of having under the purview of the Board of Aldermen.
Okay. Crime in the city. We're seeing a precipitous drop in major violent crime in the city. Do you think that's due to Mayor Joe Curtatoni's policies? Do you think it's due to the chief of police being taken out of civil service? What do you attribute it to?
I attribute it to Mayor Curtatone and the police force working together to really reinstitute community policing and having a dialogue with the residents. I see community police officers everywhere, all over the city, and I think they should both take a bow, because we've had a really nice drop in crime, and I think that's something that they should both have kudos for.
Taxes. Understanding that as your house is assessed for a higher value, naturally your tax bill will go up. Taxes, the build out of Assembly, the build out of a lot of different parts of the city, the commercial revenue that was coming in from those was supposed to offset any kind of significant tax increase. What are your thoughts if you're successful in November and the mayor comes and says, I'm going to hike the fee again, I'm going to hike the tax rate?
I would try to have a dialogue, a conversation with them against that. I think that really the focus should be on smart development in both Assembly Square and Union Square, but more so smaller community development. I think a lot of these areas where you see a lot of small developments that are overlooked, because I think the administration's focus is on the big ticket, and it's on Assembly Square and Union Square. And I see a lot of development all around the city that is lying fallow. We had the Powder House Community School has been dormant for 5 or 6 years. There's a hole in the ground in my neighborhood in Teal Square for the last 3 years. You have the development that is currently waiting right by Conway Park on Somerville Ave. I think there's a lot of that development. I think, understandably so, the mayor and the administration is focused on the big ticket, and I think maybe a little bit too much.
The Board of Aldermen and the Traffic Commission and the Mayor's office have all been deluged, especially since last winter's Last winter's snow was brutal in anyone's estimation. They have just released a press release announcing that they will alternate the side of the street parking for snow removal this year. Anybody talk to you about that during your canvassing this year?
Yes, all in my neighborhood, and anybody that's on my side of the street, I'm all in favor of that. I live on the even side, and we've had to suffer having, seeing the across the street always have the street plowed, and I think it's a matter of fairness. It's an issue of fairness, and I'm all for that change.
Well, I just thank my lucky stars I live on a one-way street, but that's okay. A nice segue, you were talking about the Powder House School. We also have other vacant buildings in the city, such as the Homans building. One of the proposals that the mayor has come forth with, which is seems grandiose, to use a phrase by somebody else in the media, new high school, new police department, police headquarters, new fire headquarters, new library. How are we going to pay for this, and what are your thoughts on whenever the mayor comes to you and says, if you're successful in November, I want to bond $40 million, $80 million, $100 million for all these new projects?
I would look at that with a little bit of trepidation. I think that those three proposals you just mentioned are big proposals just in and of themselves. So all three of them in a row, I would see we would need a quantum increase in commercial tax revenue. I think the new growth in Assembly Square was $3.9 million. I would see $10 million out of the Assembly Square project, and then we can start talking about those projects. I think they're laudable goals. I definitely think we need a new high school. We absolutely need a new library, and we need a new police station 15 years ago.
Would you be in favor of relocation of that library down into Union Square, as the mayor has stated?
I would have to take a look at what his specific plans are. I think it's a beautiful building now and a great facility, and it's about as centrally located as it can. I would caution, if the library was there, we would have to have a definite commitment for the Green Line to be in Union Square.
Let's move on just a little bit. We were talking about the Green Line. As you know, the state has announced that the expense for the Green Line has blown through the ceiling. It is now $1 billion over budget. Union Square, it looks like Union Square will get its spur. Your thoughts in terms of the board, if you're successful in November, the Board of Aldermen will weigh in a lot on what actually gets cut. The governor's office and the MBTA and the Department of Transportation are all looking at paring back the project in order to reduce the expense. What are your thoughts in terms of how the city of Somerville should move forward with that?
Well, I think what we should do is try to take a hard look at why the MBTA continues to operate in the millions of dollars of a deficit. I think that they were sued, and they can say we're bound by that suit, but in the end of the day, they need the money to have that project go, and the federal government, which is matching money, will hold back on that if they see the state does not have that commitment. So I see a lot of different proposals that US 2 and Somerville should have proposed. I think everybody should get together and say what is going to happen if this project doesn't come in on the timetable. I think it'll happen eventually. It just might not happen on the timetable that we're looking at. Major issues that your voters and your potential voters are looking at. You've been canvassing since the spring. What are they talking to you about? Well, they're certainly talking about taxes. They're certainly talking about development. But I think a close to home issue is the inordinate amount of construction projects that we have in Somerville and the traffic that goes along with them. People are frustrated to go and have them take 35 minutes to get from the west end of the city to the east end. I drop my daughter off at the high school every day on my way to work. I'm lucky if I get there within 45 minutes. And a lot of it is due, we have too many cars on the road, first of all, but we have a lot of construction projects that's narrowing the road. And the McGrath Highway project, a lot of people say, well, we can't wait for that project to be done. And that's coming soon. My understanding is that the major ramp that takes you from McGrath Highway just beyond the bridge, that ramp is soon to be closed. That's right. And what's that going to do to the Medford Street traffic, and what's that going to do to Union Square? People trying to get down into Union Square. It's going to make people cut through the neighborhoods like they do. It's going to cause a lot of local irritation and aggravation. And it's going to cause a lot of people to rethink their travel routes. Just a free-floating question, though, Sean. I mean, I was
part of one of the groups that was looking at and studying the grounding of McGrath Highway itself. What are your thoughts about that? How do you think, I mean, the benefits of, you know, remarrying parts of Union Square into Brick Bottom and into the Inner Belt, but what does it do for traffic in the city?
While the project is being constructed, it creates, it takes a bad situation and makes it worse. It's a colossal project, and I don't know how that can happen without seriously undermining an already bad traffic problem to begin with.
Website, one more time.
Sean, S-E-A-N, the number 4, alderman.com.
Excellent. Anything else you want to add for the voters?
Just, I asked consideration for one of their 4 votes. I am running for alderman at large, and I think that the alderman and the Board of Aldermen has seen a dramatic change in the last election cycle, and I think the board is now a lot open, a lot more transparent, and a lot more proactive in really challenging fine proposals by the administration, but asking the tough questions they need to, and I want to be part of that change.
Sean, best wishes on November 3rd. Thank you very much for joining us. My guest has been Alderman at Large,
Premature.
I'll say it. I'll say it. Alderman at Large candidate Sean Fitzgerald. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.